Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Slay to Success talk show. My name is Rochelle Slay Queen Hemingway, CEO and founder of Slay to Success. I advise and empower women professionals, especially women veterans, to step up into their most authentic brand to gain and attract lucrative opportunities. But on this show here, I bring in a guest that is doing absolutely phenomenal things using the slay philosophy. And slay means to kill it, to dominate it, and to nail it, to be on point, to impress greatly, to dream big and work hard until you own it. It is also an acronym that stands for Universal Life and Leadership Philosophies that really resonate with me. And I hope that they resonate with you as well as we continue to live this thing that we call life. And that is stay ready to be ready, lead out loud, a sense of community. You are built to last. And y'all, I'll tell you, my guest has been on here once before, and we are going to be blessed to have her back with us this evening. So if you are here, please let us know that you are streaming in from wherever that is, so that way we can give you a proper shout out, because this is going to be a conversation that all of us need to have, all of us need to hear and to share with our family, our friends, our colleagues, or anyone that you know could benefit from what we're going to be talking about. Okay, I am a keynote speaker, a certified image consultant, personal brand expert, and author of several different types of things. Here, I have a little display here, as well as a proud United States Air Force veteran of 30 years. And so when I talk about, what we are going to be sharing on this show, there are topics that are really true, dear to my heart, which are leadership, wellness, mindset, personal branding, business acumen, because I believe that all the things that I have learned, not only from my military life, but just life experiences, these types of topics are always something that we can think on, talk about, bring up, and just give some more insights to. So tonight, y'all, we have Linda Penkala here. She is so awesome. Okay, we met through the Businesswomen's Network of Howard County, and ever since then, we just see each other. We just love on one another. She has that energy, that life, and so she's back to make another announcement. Okay, so she made a announcement the last show that we are on. She's here for the second appearance to share with us what has been going on with her. Now, her greatest joy, excluding loving on her 6 grandkids, that's right, 6 grandkids, is to help others connect the dots to embrace health and wellness on the road to longevity naturally. As a wellness catalyst through published articles, presentations in person and online, aromatherapy massages, and her recent book, The Pause to Relax, she finds her heart's passions is to help people relax, all to be more intentional, right? We talk about intentionality a lot here in this space, but intentionality is really something that you can all really point to and think about, like, how can I do things better in my life? But she's very intentional about the life choice, the lifestyle choices that she is taking on. So she discovered the fact that heart disease is the number one killer of men and women. But when research revealed that many women know nothing of the statistics, all right? And so that's what she talked to us on the last show, because she had AFib, or diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, and she learned a lot of lessons through that. And so she is a former horse jockey. All right. She does holistic self-regulation modalities that lessen stress, enhance breathwork, and finds a peaceful balance. So let's bring on Linda without further ado to the show. Hello, Linda.
Hi, Rochelle.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness. There's certain people that when you see them and you meet them for the first time, that you're just like, they're my people. All right. Like me and you connected. We had the same kind of energy, the vibe. We like to talk about a lot of common things that have happened in our life. And when you reached out and said, "Hey, I would love an opportunity to come back again for the second time," I was like, "Yes, Queen. Let's go. Let's have this conversation." So, first of all, before we get too far in to our chit chat, I want to say congratulations to you, Queen.
Thank you.
Congratulations, because you're about to make an announcement to all of our audience members. And y'all, please show her some love when she shares what she has been up to. So just tell us what's happening. What's the announcement?
Well, a week ago today, my revised version of The Pause to Relax was published. And this is the book that I want to share with all your listeners. And The Pause to Relax is all about cardiovascular disease and how we can enhance and lessen our risks and live our lives richer and
Yeah.
healthier. And so the past year, I have been doing the research, Rochelle, because after the pandemic, so much has changed. The stress has escalated. So my
Mm,
original book, was published and it was on Amazon. And that was December of 2019. And then 3 months later, in March of 2020, the whole world shut down.
mhm.
So that kind of paused me from going out and doing book signings and teaching people that way. And then all of the stats and the research last year, when I did the research, I was led to update it because so many things have changed,
Mm,
from the working schedules and situations for women, and really worse numbers for cardiovascular disease with women.
wow.
So the conversation needs to be had to allow women to realize that they can have certain tools and certain lifestyle modality shifts to enhance their lives, but mostly to lessen their cardiovascular risks. And that's the most
Yeah.
important part of the book, to make it fun. And I weave in my jockey, my horse riding years with it. And this time I put horsey hints in here, like here are horsey hints right here,
Mhm.
little picture of horse. And I have a fact. I have a fact. So I could read a fact. Horses have superb hearing and 10 muscles in their ears. As a
Oh.
rider, I was always taught to read the horse's ears when you're sitting on a horse. If they are straight up and forward, kind of like this, that's good. They're paying attention. But if they're pinned back toward me, then they're not happy and they're ready to react to something. So I just wanted to make it a fun read this time around, Rochelle.
Yeah.
It's a heavy topic, but I wanted to put pictures and facts about horses so that people can have like a little respite around these topics and all. And the 7 chapters are all about, chapter 2 is about the medical stats. But then I weave through the book all these lifestyle choices that you can make.
Yeah. There, y'all, on our first conversation, if you want to go back to the YouTube channel, it is loaded on the Slate to Success YouTube channel on the first conversation. But what she was just sharing was she was a former horse jockey. And so now she's really on a mission to share with the world, if you will, about the risk of cardiovascular diseases and what we can do in our life, like these lifestyle choices that we need to make so that way we are not having, some chronic conditions, if you will, and leading into heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, and so forth. So, Linda, can you share with the audience what the incident that you had that led you into getting diagnosed with a certain heart condition? So just to kind of, level out playing ground so people will understand what we're speaking from.
Sure. Over 10 years ago, I all of a sudden my heart was pounding really fast and irregularly. Like it would go like boom, boom. boom, boom, boom. And I knew that was wrong. And I had a stethoscope. So I listened to my heart, and I never heard it do that before. So my husband and I went to the Howard County emergency room. And so it was there that they put me on a medication to get my heart rate back to normal sinus rhythm, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And so after a certain amount of hours, that wasn't working. And they said they would have to do cardioversion, which is zapping with the paddles, which scared me because I thought maybe I'd die from that, because I don't do good with electricity, to my body. I just don't. So they admitted me, and I went upstairs into a room, and they put IV fluid in me. So that was the next step, is to help bring it down. And then by the grace of God, about 3 or 4 in the morning, I could see next door, my normal sinus rhythm came back. And I was like, oh, thank God, thank God. And I was just being so happy and excited. I was back in the rhythm of life. But it was the next morning, Rochelle, that I asked the doctor, what happened? How did I get this? He goes, well, Linda, all your numbers are normal. Everything is good. And then I said, well, how can I prevent it? I mean, what happened? He goes, you know what, Linda, sometimes we just don't know. I was like, I was like, well, that's just not good enough for me. And I write
Right.
all about this in my book. And so I went back, and the writer in me, because I was writing articles then, I said, let me do some research. And I came to find out that cardiovascular disease is the number one global killer of men and women in the world. And
Mm.
that it's more than all the cancers combined in the United States. We are dying of cardiovascular disease. Then when it comes to women, that we are dying more of cardiovascular disease than men, Rochelle. And I didn't know any of this. I was clueless. And when I read it, I was just aghast that these are the statistics. Then I read that 41% of all deaths in this country are cardiovascular disease, but only 44% of women know this fact. So the
Mm.
next couple of years, I said, well, I'm going to teach people. So I created my Wise Women Heart Health program, which includes a PowerPoint. And I taught companies, churches, groups of women, and it had my 9 pillars of heart disease prevention. And when I'd say, how many know that cardiovascular disease is our number one killer?
Mm-hmm.
Half the people didn't raise their hand. And when I said, how many people know that us women are dying more than men? About a third of the people raised their hand. So clearly I said to myself, more work needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, wow, so I need to do more than write articles. I
Yeah.
need to have one source that people can go to as a guide, which is why I have the word guide in the title, is because someone needs a path to go down to figure out how you don't end up like I did. So here's the deal.
Mm.
I wasn't a very good student of my wellness walk, and I was going through a lot of stress then, and I wasn't doing a great job. So my mess became my message. And
Mm.
I realized that I have to do all the things that I mentioned for you in the book, which is
Yeah.
get a massage once a month, get a chiropractic adjustment once a month, get acupuncture once a month. I do yin yoga once a week. And so I do all these things on a proactive, preventive basis now to reduce my stress, to lessen my
Mm.
stress. I love my job, but back in the day, I had 4 teenagers all at once. I had 4 teenagers. Now, I think you have one. Is that
I
right?
have one. That's all I could take. That's all I could do. I don't know how. I don't
I
know.
did
I
four,
have
girl.
both
I
of
had
us.
four, 3 boys and a girl, and it was intense, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, you had all this stress build up, and you were just talking about some proactive uh, tools that you are using on a regular basis.
yeah.
And talk about a monthly massage, a monthly chiropractic appointment. You're doing the yoga once a week, the yin yoga. So, like, how did you get to that point? Because, a lot of us, I'll just be honest, I don't go get massages every, month, maybe every other month or, when I feel like I need to, because I'm very active. I had never been to a chiropractor before because I never really thought that I needed it. So, how did you come up with these are the things that you need to do?
Well, after seeing all the research that, and I love being a research hound, I just love research. And I saw that we need to reduce our cortisol. So when we're stressed out, the
Mm,
sympathetic nervous system takes us really down that path of increasing the cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. And it's like what we need to do to get out of that situation of the bear chasing you, and then you made it alive, right?
mm,
Okay, but the problem with our modern day stress is that your sympathetic nervous system and that spigot of cortisol is on all the time because
mm,
you may not have all of these proactive things that I chose to do to bring my cortisol levels down, which come down with a massage. You get a massage, I am moving as a massage therapist. I am moving that cortisol through your body. Your kidneys and liver have to process it, which is why I remind everyone to drink water, Rochelle, after a
Got my
massage,
water.
because your kidneys are receiving all these toxins, right? And so from when I saw this research, I said I really need to be sure my cortisol is down, because you know what happens then when you have an increased cortisol and you don't do these proactive lifestyle choices that I chose and that I really suggest for women and men, is that you have increased inflammation from that cortisol. What does
Mm,
increased inflammation do?
yeah.
Create oxidative stress. Inflammation creates cardiovascular disease. So it's a
Wow.
very circular um, little things that happen that build up to where, oh, you have high blood pressure. Well, I wonder why I have high blood pressure, right?
Right.
Right? Because you never had that respite to stop and take
Mm,
note, to pause and say, wow, I feel I have a headache. Wow, I've been having headaches every Monday morning when I go to work. Or, I only peed a couple of times today. Well, that's not very good. You're not drinking enough water,
yeah.
right? So there are signs, and that's part of my book, Rochelle, is that I remind people to begin to pay attention.
Yeah.
We have to pay attention to ourselves, right?
Yeah. We are a whole job in ourselves. Like I think,
Correct.
when people are like, it's hard to keep up with yourself when you got to keep up with all of the other responsibilities that life gives us, right? And so, all what you're saying is these are choices. This is a choice
All choices.
on how we're going to start living. And then these choices then go in as a lifestyle, right? And that's what you
Correct.
speak to. This is what you do. This is how you handle all the stressors, the, overwhelm of life, and making sure that your body is functioning properly, all right. So that way you can handle all the challenges that come our way. Because I'll be honest with you, as a new business owner after serving for 30 years, I had to really step back and really think about, like, what is this next chapter going to be for me? And how can I, and we love this word, be intentional about how I live, the quality of life, right? Like, my quality of life right now is seeking that higher, version, if you will, because I have a 15-year-old son. I want to see him be able to do all of the things that he's going to choose to do when he grows up and moves away, if you will, right? But I think a lot of times we put things on the back burner. And when you're saying paying attention, you get a headache, or you're not feeling well, or something is off, and you're just like, oh, I'll just go with it. I'll just go with it. And then you find out that you've had some serious challenges happening with your body. So I know that stress is like one of the biggest components, especially during COVID, and now post COVID. There's a lot of stress and anxiety and overwhelm. So if someone is stuck like right now and is listening in, what are some tools, or how can they start to reimagine that lifestyle, if you will? We were talking about, preventing heart disease.
Well, an easy way that I like to teach is just breath work, just breathing. So we
Mm,
could do that right now. We
yeah.
could just practice breathing,
Let's do
Rochelle.
that.
And
Yeah,
I like to do box breathing, which is a military, box
it is.
breathing.
Yep.
So it's what they taught the Navy SEALs.
Yep.
And do you know the story better than me? Why don't you tell people?
Well, I don't know the story behind
Oh,
it, but I
okay.
do know that that's one of the tools and techniques that they teach us. Now, I didn't start to learn about it until later in my career,
Right.
when they
Right.
started to really focus on, okay,
Right.
y'all, physical health really matters. Like, you
Right.
really got to do this, right?
Right. And so what they did is they said we need to allow these Navy SEALs who really, in terms of stress, they are up there. If stress
Hmm.
is 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, they're probably 15. Would you agree?
Probably. Yeah.
So they're focusing on this mission, which could be very dangerous and life threatening. So they wanted to teach them this technique called box breathing. So basically, it's inhaling for 4,
Hmm.
pausing for 4, exhaling for 4, and pausing for 4. And when they began to teach these Navy SEALs this, they found that they would have a focus,
Hmm.
a calm, and a sense of really, really being able to be present, as
Yeah.
opposed to paying attention to something out there when they really have to focus on this. So let's all do that right now. I'll do the counting, you do the breathing.
Absolutely.
And we could begin with just getting comfy, sitting up straight wherever you are. Close your eyes, open them, whatever. And you could go ahead, take a deep breath into your nose and hold it for the count of 4. Go ahead. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Do it again. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Now just take a moment to pause and pay attention to how you feel. We only did that 2 times, but even in those 2 little moments of that exchange, you could feel a lot more grounded, a lot more peaceful. I feel like I'm talking a lot calmer. And you could share what you're feeling, Rochelle, after those
Yeah,
little breath
I
work.
mean, I feel the same way. I think my challenge is to know that that tool is available, right? Because when you're in the moment of something very heightened, or perhaps like in DC traffic, like that's where I probably need to do a lot more box breathing. It's like, you know, of remembering that I have this tool that I can use. So, practicing more, like when nothing is happening. All right. So that way, when something
Right,
does happen,
right,
I know that, okay, good, you've
right.
been practicing this. It's just like anything else, right?
Yeah,
So, I agree. Like in the moment, like we sometimes get so caught up and so distracted by all the noise that's going on in the world, either in life when you're just out and about, or on social media. I know social media can really take people out, right? But COVID, I think, has been one of those times or periods in our life, what we're always going to go back to in our era, as a point of all the chaos, confusion, and all the things were happening, and increased the stress levels. And now we're operating as if this is a new normal, right? But a lot of people have not reset,
right.
So
Exactly.
you're talking about the statistics of the research post COVID. Like, give us some more information that you found out about the heart conditions and so forth post COVIDs, and kind of the insights and perspectives.
Sure. Well, heart disease risks increased because of the stress.
Mm.
So, and women were impacted by the pandemic because women, think about this, they had to work from home in front of this computer, go into the next room and help their kids do school on their computer, regardless of the age. They had to help them navigate that, come back to their computer,
Yeah.
feed them lunch, come back to their computer, and figure out life. I don't know
Yeah.
how women did it back then, but the problem is that with all of that COVID-19 pandemic that we had to shelter in place, all those words that we had to take on,
Mm.
we had to listen and see and pay way too much attention to the statistics of COVID and all that on TV.
Oh yeah.
But what happened is it increased our fear, our
Yeah.
anxiety, our depression, and that's still continuing to this day because you know what? So many women had to just realign themselves and figure it's too much that fast track pace of my career. A lot of them made the choice to step out of it. And in my book, I give you this whole long article of how women and women in work has changed since the pandemic because
Mm-hmm.
it's not what it used to be at all. So all of the progress that was made cardiovascular wise before the pandemic, a lot of it was erased just because of what we all went through. We went
Mm.
through a lot. We were the glue that held it all together because women do run the calendar in their families. If you have children, women, are on top of every detail in a family, plus work, plus commute and all that. And so what happens is if you weren't taking care of yourself prior to the pandemic,
That.
during the pandemic, you probably weren't then. Right,
No.
Rochelle?
Absolutely. I,
Right?
I believe in me. It was happening. All right. And, I do know that there were some spouses that were men who were staying at home. My husband was one of those. I was working, he was retired. He was the one helping AJ with all the homework and all the things. Okay. And I could see the stress that was happening for him, for AJ. And, if he did not have, again, means to really know what self-care meant. I know that the days when he was like done, all right, like I was like, oh my God, what's happening in here? But he was like, I'm good, I'm okay. I was able to like, walk on the treadmill or run or lift or whatever the case may be, because we had built our own home gym into our house because in military, as we were progressing in those higher leadership roles, we just didn't have the time to go out and just go and spend a couple hours at the gym. So we created our gym, and that I think was one of, it wasn't the all the be all, because you can exercise yourself to death if you will, but it was all the other stuff like rest, making sure that you were calming yourself down, that you were taking the proper nutrition, and all of that. So it's something else that that I saw too, for a lot of people who weren't really taking it seriously prior, or not even seriously. It wasn't the first thing that they were working on. And so
Right.
you're right. After post COVID, a lot of people are still struggling to really figure out how to prioritize themselves.
They are. And so I wrote an article called Navigating New Waters of Wellness during the pandemic. I wrote it in 2020 into 21. After I'm seeing what's going on out there and reading how people are struggling, they really were struggling. And wellness and health and wellness really made a shift in that you saw the 3 M words. I think I said it something like this: meditation, massage, and mindfulness. All
Mm.
those words were happening in 21, 22. During 20, we were all just getting through 2020. But 21, 22, we heard those 3 M's: meditation, mindfulness, right? We were paying attention. We never read about that prior to that, right?
Absolutely not.
Never.
I never heard of any of that. I was
Never.
like, who's meditating?
Yeah.
Like, what is this mindfulness thing? I didn't know, because I was, this is what we were doing. They was always on that, hamster wheel.
You're
Like,
on
you
the
got to do,
treadmill.
yeah,
You're
you
on
got to
the
be here, you got
treadmill,
to be
right?
here, you got to do this, you got to do that. And you get caught up in that and you don't understand how you're showing up. All right. And a
Right.
lot of us, like, we just did what we needed to do to get through.
Right, but I'd like to read something from on page 48.
Sure.
I have written for the American Institute of Stress, and all of your listeners can go to stress.org. It's a pretty simple website to remember, stress.org. And they have wonderful resources for the military. Rochelle, I've sent you many things. They have Contentment Magazine, but they also have a military magazine as well.
Yeah.
It's called Combat Magazine. But this is what I put, this quote, and this is about stress. In New York and Los Angeles, the relationship between job stress and heart attack is so well known that any police officer who suffers a coronary event on or off the job is assumed to have a work-related injury, thus compensated accordingly. And in parenthesis, it says, including a heart attack sustained while fishing on vacation or gambling in Las Vegas. That's how
Mm,
strong the correlation is, because they have a very intense, stressful job,
yeah.
right? Well,
Yeah.
policemen, firemen, I mean,
Yeah.
and many people. So that's pretty powerful that the insurance companies know that now, and that the American Institute of Stress says it in that quote. That's powerful, right?
Yeah.
Now, I like to share with my clients that stress kills, period. Stress kills. And decades ago, when I started in this field, in the beginning, the first 10 years, I was like, wow, I wonder if I wonder if I could feel stress here on this massage table. Do I feel stress in people's shoulders? And in the beginning, you're kind of like new in the first,
Mm-hmm.
5, 10 years. You haven't touched some people, but after 37, 38 years here, about midway, I was like, I do believe I'm touching and feeling people's stress in their muscles. Where do emotions go? Where does grief go? People's hearts are broken from the death of a loved
Mm,
one or an animal or relationships or grief of a divorce. It goes
mm,
into our soft tissue. It goes into our
mm.
heart, goes into our traps. And I mention a book in the back of the book. I mentioned a woman who wrote a book about where do your emotions go? They sit
Mm.
in soft tissue. They sit in your soft tissue, but you have to do something with it. So if you happen to be a couch potato and you choose not to move and exercise like you and I,
Yeah.
if you don't do that, then they just sit and they get knotted up and they get knotted up, and your traps are tight, your neck is tight, your neck where a lot of emotions go. I always tell my clients that have sinus issues or a lot of emotional issues with family or job or whatever, the emotions can settle in your neck. So,
Mm.
and this is what I've come to learn and find out with my clients on the table is that, the neck holds an awful lot of tension. But if you're not doing anything in terms of moving, taking hot Epsom salt baths, like I always talk to my clients about, or even taking a hot shower or learning humming to engage your vagus nerve. Humming is a great thing you could do when you're driving to DC. I hum
Mm.
all the time. You inhale and hum it out. If you have sinus issues, put your teeth together and that humming engages your vagus nerve. And why is that important? Because the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body, starts down in your gut, comes all the way up through the heart, either side of your neck, next to the carotid artery, into your brain. And the best
Mm.
place that we could touch the vagus nerve is here in our ears. So I teach people how to do a breathing technique using your vagus nerve to help you sleep and calm you down.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that you could just massage your ear and hum. I do stim vin breathing. That's my breathing technique, is you're
Mhm.
stimulating your vagus nerve. You massage your ears, and then you put both fingers in your ears and you hum it out. And the
Mm.
humming wakes up the vagus nerve that gets overtaken by that cortisol, that spigot that's still on. So there's either something running your body, sympathetic nervous system or the parasympathetic nervous system is running
Wow.
your body. You want to always be, which is why I do all those proactive things, Rochelle. You
Yeah.
want to take your car and turn it toward the parasympathetic nervous system. Slow lane. Don't want to be in the fast lane. You want to be in the slow lane.
Yeah.
And so it's important to know how you could get there. Breath work, meditation, massage, humming, how you get there, why you'd want to get there, and you need to be sure that you have at least a few tools to help you along the way. So you don't end up in the hospital like I did.
Yeah. Listen, all these different tools that you're sharing, I mean, I'm just like, I don't even know if you shared, I'm sure you did last time, but I'm just thinking this is new information to me. Like, and I think sometimes we need to hear it more often than not
Right,
to understand
right.
that these things can help us because that's what we need right now. Like, I feel like, especially after the age of 50, y'all, I'm 52. And so, things have changed and shifted in my body that I was not prepared for. And so, now I am uh paying more attention to what I'm eating and how I move and all these different things now because I could be rolled up like a pretzel out here, okay, and not really feel my best. And that's what I want to do, even in the midst of everything. Well, first of all, I do want to acknowledge that Donnell has been with us. So, Donnell, thank you so much for being with us. You are present and accounted for. So, thank you so much on the LinkedIn side for dropping in on the live show today. So, one of those things that I've really thought really deeply about was medications, right? And I know that in your book, you were talking about how people nowadays, I mean, and I think it's always been a thing, but probably more so now after COVID, are using medication to mask symptoms, to really like, oh, I've got an ache, so I'll just, take medication every day. And I don't want to feel that anymore. But in reality, it's a sign. It's something's happening with your body that you need to get looked at. You need to go to the doctor and kind of see why that's happening. So in your research, like tell us a little bit about, the masking.
Well, we have, you have holistic medicine, a DO, doctor osteopathy, chiropractor, who takes in your whole body, mind, soul, spirit component of your health, asks you things about exercise, movement, hydration, things like that. And an allopathic doctor comes to it from a different perspective of people come to them to fix something. And so they want to fix a broken bone or fix a cold, they might need antibiotics or whatever, and that's what they're trained in. And that's their training.
Mm,
But what we really want to be sure is that in your wellness walk is you have a doctor who is on board with asking you questions about your health other than a prescription pad to write, a medication. And so in my book, I talk about a guy named a Dr. Leaf in, I think, San Francisco, and he does write a prescription pad, but here's the deal. He writes it for, I want you to go on a walk with a friend. I want you to stop and look at a tree and just pay attention to what you're smelling, feeling, and seeing. And I want you to write a gratitude note to someone
mm,
and share the love. That's his prescription that he writes to people. And when
mm.
I saw that, I was like, wow, I have to put that in my book.
Yeah.
And so doctors are great. They are trained to help fix a problem, but it's the lifestyle, holistic people that help you live through your life easier, a little easier and gentler, because all those pills and medications are man-made. They are made by man. Whatever country over there across the pond or wherever in our country they're made, they are man-made medications. And so I prefer, and what my little Filipino grandmother taught me is natural remedies. Just like I mentioned in the book, a little piece of garlic, if we had a sore throat, we would she'd smash it up with a rock, like a really big rock, and bam, bam, bam. And then she'd give us a little piece of garlic. Now, all my other brothers and sisters were like, no, I'm not doing that. But little Linda, I said, sure, why not?
I was like,
But you
she
know
crazy.
what? She never gave us a pill. She
Yeah.
never did that when we
Yeah.
stayed in the summers with her. And to
Yeah.
this day, I try to eat a clove of garlic a day because that is good for cardiovascular health.
Yeah.
Garlic is great. So, but if my husband or some of the kids, even my granddaughter, Ava, I said, Ava, this is an old-time remedy. I said, you want to try? Try it. And she did. She tried it. Oh my gosh, she's 8 years old. God bless her. She believed me and she tried it. And she goes, wow, Gima, I think it worked. I said, yeah, baby, it does work. It does. So little things like that allows you to have a natural remedy. You know, I use essential oils. I call them God's medicine from the earth, right? There are, you know, here's peppermint. I have peppermint right here. Before we went on live, I put a little on my hand, licked it off, and put it to the roof of my mouth to get my brain to be sharp. And I smelled it, and it goes all the way through my olfactory bulb to my brain. And the fastest way to your brain is through your nose,
Yeah.
your amygdala. And so I prefer the natural world, and I know that mainstream medicine has a purpose and has a reason. But what I always like to say to people, you have to see what the benefits and the risk ratio is, Rochelle.
Yeah.
What's the benefit of being on 10 medications? How's your kidneys and liver running?
Yeah.
And what's the benefit of being on lesser but using more natural products? You know, there's nothing wrong with it as long as your kidneys and liver and you're doing well with all those medications. But I believe, like you, a lot of those things are a Band-Aid.
They are. They
They're a
truly
Band-Aid.
are.
And you have to get to the root of the problem. If the root of the problem is your diet, we'll start eating better. If the root of the problem is dehydration, so say you have a tendon and a ligament issue, your Achilles tendon, and then your IT bands, you know, your iliotibial band on the side from your hip to your knee. Do you know tendons need hydration? If you happen to be dehydrated, which most doctors don't ask you how much water you drink, you're at. I've never, even during my journey with my heart health, not one doctor said, Linda, are you hydrated? Do you know dehydration is part of cardiovascular illness and disease and AFib? And do you know that during the holidays of Christmas and New Year's Eve, they call it holiday heart? ERs are jammed with people because they drink a lot more alcohol and they're with family. They're under more stress, maybe because they're with family or I don't know what, but and so anyone in the medical field will say, oh yeah, I worked in the ER. Everyone knows that. But it's during the end of December, beginning of January, a lot of people go because they're dehydrated, they drank too much, they ate too much, and they're certainly not paying attention. They just want to open up their gifts, right?
Yeah, seriously, and have a party. Lottie dottie having parties. You know, so you're
lots of parties. Yeah.
You know, listen, all of what you're sharing is like very like, whoa, wait a minute, you know, because again, if you don't know this information, if you don't have this, so where you can start to make the changes that you need to, again, y'all, we're talking about lifestyle. This is like not a quick fix. This is not like I do it, you know, one day and then maybe I'll think about it and do it next week. Like, no, this is about like, what are you doing on a daily basis? Because it's a compound effect, I believe, you know, like all the different, it's the sum of the choices that we're making. So every day making a choice. And before we came onto the show, y'all, I was talking about the Swiss cheese hole effect, where like something happens, like an incident happens, maybe, you're not feeling well. Okay. And then the next day, you're feeling like sluggish and you're not quite sure. Then the next day, like you're like, oh my goodness, got a headache. And then the next day you go run and you're like, wow, I feel exhausted. I mean, and it's just over time, then you wind up in the emergency room, or unfortunately we have a lot of people who pass away unexpectedly, and my dad was one of those individuals. You were talking
Wow.
about medications and that are man-made. My dad had at least 40 different type of medications when he passed away in his
Wow.
little satchel, and me and my mom were kind of looking at these medications and going, how you know what I mean, how? And I think it was like this medication was for, when this symptom happens, but then this other symptom is happening, or this illness, and he was taking shots. He had diabetes, and so he was taking insulin injections 3 and 4 times a day, because it was not being managed. So when he did have a heart attack, it was the sum of choices over time. And
Right.
as tragic as it is, and it's very like, it was very shocking for our family. We could see, like, he was overweight, he was struggling to breathe, he was coughing a lot. He was he had a walker, so he was, using that for assistance, and then he had all these medications that he was trying to keep up. He was sleeping more during the day, so now, as I have taken a step back from that and kind of looked at how his life was, the quality of life. I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I don't want to be like that. So
Right.
I'm going to try to find all of the ways that I can feel better and show up healthy,
Right.
you know? So, I think sometimes it does take, unfortunately, a tragic or a personal situation to happen where you're just kind of like, wait a minute. you know, I need to do better. And, eyes are honest. You got 6 beautiful grandchildren. Okay. So, as someone being the matriarch of the family, being the example of what life could look like for when they grow up. As they're growing up, they can remember these things. So we're really trying to shift and change the trajectory of the health and wellness of our families, so they don't have to be living in a life where they're not feeling good, they're always ill, they're always trying to figure out, like, why can I, how come I can't have a better health, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I always talk about the sugar and component of sodas and candies. Like we don't have that for our grandkids in our house. We
Oof.
don't. We have fruit. We might have, lemonade from Trader Joe's or something. I don't even have orange juice. That's really not the greatest for you either. But what I do share and I teach these kids is that sugar is not good for you and it impacts your immune system. So
Mm,
the more sugar you eat, the more you'll get colds, you'll get sick, and this winter was really hard on a lot of kids, and a lot of people were sick this
mhm.
winter. And
They
I
sure
thank
were.
God I never got anything. And I
Me
am
neither.
in people's germ fields on my table. People come in, they might be snotting or running a cold a little bit. And I say, if you're comfortable, I'm okay. And I'll
Yeah.
put some oil of thieves on my tongue and pray, and I'm protected. I never got sick ever, but I take care of myself, right? I
Yeah,
also take vitamin C and D, and these are all important, but I teach my babes, you have to make good decisions to choose to eat candy or not, or choose to eat fruit or not. And you have to start teaching children that they can begin to make a decision, even if they're 5 or 6 or 7.
that's
And
right.
so, but I'm pretty strict about that. And And their parents are pretty good about that too,
Yeah,
because that's the way I raised them. But um,
exactly.
yeah, but it's important to realize that we do have choices when we have a symptom. So I really want to read from page 29. I created this acronym, PEBS, right here, PEBS. See this, PEBS?
Pebs, yeah.
PEBS. So this is important for women and men because we are not men when we have our symptoms of cardiovascular disease, as in a heart attack. So here's the deal. I developed this acronym for easy recall. I am hopeful it'll help many women decide whether to move forward or not in their wondering, like, what is that? Like you're like, what is that symptom? Like, what is it? Or do you stop? So PEBS, P is for pain in the neck, in the face, in the jaw, in the arm, or just pressure, like an elephant sitting on your chest. So P is for pain in the upper body there. E is for exhaustion and fatigue, which
Mm-hmm.
is really unusual for you. Now, men don't get this. You'll never hear anyone talk about that for men because they don't get that. We do. We get total exhaustion like you just ran 3 marathons in a row. That's the exhaustion. So you, I know me, we all know our bodies. So when you say, I've been exhausted for like 7 days in a row now. Ding, ding, ding. You
Mm-hmm.
should say, "Wow, I think I read that in that book."
Yeah.
B is for breath, having a shortness of breath and possibly being lightheaded. So it's about your breath. Like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you just get short of breath, Rochelle. It's because
Mm-hmm.
your heart is getting the oxygen lessened because of what? Maybe a blockage, maybe whatever, but something's happening. There's a change, right?
Yeah.
And S is for sweating and also for nausea and stomach upset. So S is sweating and stomach. So here it is. This idea for the above acronym came to me when thinking about an irritant that makes us stop. It's like a pebble in your shoe or sandal, right? It's a
Mm.
surefire way to get us to stop moving, right?
Yeah.
We have to stop and take it out, right? Continuing pain may hurt or damage our foot, so we stop, right? When you get a rock in your shoe or whatever,
Oh yeah,
you're
we
not going
not
to keep
walking no more.
walking.
Yeah, no.
You're not going to keep walking.
This is too
So,
much pain
yeah, right. We don't want to
and
be,
annoyance.
but you have to make it a point to memorize this mnemonic tool, I said, because when a distinct, unusual symptom arises, you have to pause and review this PEBS protocol. Because if not, your life could be taken. And so that's why part of this book is such a preventive way to help. Really, it's both and to save, but to save lives, Rochelle, because women don't know. And do you know, in the 20s, women that are pregnant, 50% of them already have cardiovascular disease. That's the current statistic. 50% of 20-year-olds that get pregnant, they already have cardiovascular disease. And the number one killer of pregnant women, guess what that is? Cardiovascular
Oh, I
disease.
can believe it.
Because
I can
women
believe
aren't healthy going in.
no. And in truth be told, I had AJ at the age of 37, and I had already been diagnosed with high blood pressure. It just at what 30 weeks, it just I don't even know, took over. Ended up having preeclampsia, and I ended up having gestational diabetes. Okay. So,
Um,
you know, towards the end there, my blood pressure got up to like 200 over 100 something on the table when they were going and doing the C-section. And I just looked at my husband and I said, I'm not going to make it. I feel horrible. I feel like I'm going to be taken out, you know? And so, fast forward, my blood pressure was still highly elevated. I mean, for a whole year after I had him. And they were trying to figure out how to titrate my medications to bring my heart rate down or in my blood pressure down, and it just not didn't happen. So I had to literally start from scratch. I said, all the things that I have been eating that I have really, because at some points in your life, you're just like, I'll just eat this. It's okay. It's okay. I just said, I'm not eating that. I'm not doing anything that's going to, increase my chances of having a stroke because that's what I felt like I was going to have. And I did not find out about maternal health and the statistics around that until after I retired from the military
Wow.
because I was not, I was just, oh, okay,
Wasn't
I'm
on
at
your radar.
yeah, I'm just going to keep going. All right, my blood pressure's coming down. All right, I'm going to change some things that I'm going to eat, and I'm just going to keep going. And I told Dominique, I said I could have died. Like that is how serious it is. But when you just now shared, even 20-year-olds, because we're living in a world where everything needs to be microwaved, it's an
Yeah.
instantaneous, give it to me now kind of mentality. And these foods are processed and they're not good for anyone. And so, really having to take ownership of our health is so important. Like, right. And you're right. Like AJ, he don't get here. And I think it's like basketball player mentality too. Like they teach them too, like you've got to be eating the right foods. But
Right.
it starts at home sometimes. We have to figure out how we can, again, shift our way of doing what we've been doing to sustain. And we want long life. You talk about longevity and doing that from a natural standpoint.
Right. Right. So one of my pillars, let me go over one of my pillars of I'll just go over the 9 pillars of heart disease prevention that I created. And so the number one is know your numbers. Know your numbers, high blood pressure, blood sugar, fasting blood sugar, and all that. So know your numbers. But also to assess stress, pay attention to your stress. Movement is medicine. We both believe in that, right?
Yep.
Stop smoking. That's the number
Yep.
one preventable thing is stopping smoking. And eat and drink heart healthy. So let's pause here before I go to the other couple of ones. So here's eat and drink heart healthy. Half your body weight in ounces of water. Most people don't talk about this much, but I do as a massage therapist because half the world is dehydrated. That plays into your heart health, plays into Alzheimer's. It plays into every organ in your body.
Mm.
Drinking, so your heart is a muscle. Staying hydrated by drinking half your body weight in ounces helps your brain, all your organs. But drinking, for all the soda drinking people, drinking 2 or more sodas a day is linked to kidney damage. Now, that's from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. Diet sodas and sugar sweetened drinks may raise the risk of kidney stones, while all soft drinks are the single biggest source of calories and sugar in our diets. That's a Harvard School of Public Health.
Mm.
Drinking 2 or more diet sodas per day is linked to a drop in the kidney's filtration rate, a measure of the kidney's function. And that's from the Nurses' Health Study. But here's the deal
Wow.
with eating. So I want to just share with everyone that all you have to do is remember red, the color red. It's the
Mm-hmm.
way God made us to remember this easily. Everything good for the heart is red, right?
Mm.
Blueberries, strawberries, anything red, raspberries, beets. So all these things are really good for our hearts, right? They keep it simple.
Mm.
So number 6 is slow down and relax. Talk about that a lot. And also gather with girlfriends. It's so important for us to be, the energy in a room, Rochelle, when we
Yeah.
all get together, it's all women.
Yeah.
If we ever canned it and sold it, we'd be millionaires. My God.
Absolutely. Yes.
Unbelievable energy of women in a room and regular dental cleaning. I have a biological holistic dentist,
Oh.
and then allow nature to nurture. So
Yeah.
go out in the greens, go out, walk on the earth, go to the mountains, go to the streams, go to the ocean, but be on the earth because we want to get those electrons that come up from the earth to
Yeah.
help us cardiovascular wise. Because if you have thick blood and dehydrated at the same time, those electrons from the earth that come, the closest you could get to is right where the water meets the land at the beach, where most people walk or run, where the sand is kind of wet and it's
Yeah.
kind of moist and maybe a little hard. That's where you have the greatest electrons from the earth, is where the water comes
Mm,
to the earth. That's why people are attracted to the earth and the water right there. People sit there because their bodies know, right? Their bodies know
mm,
this.
yeah. Just so much great information. Linda, this is a great resource. Y'all, if you didn't get anything from this conversation, shame on you. Okay. So you should have had your pen and your paper writing some things out that Linda has shared with us, because this is part of the slay factor. Okay. If you want to slay all the things, you want to make sure that your wellness is on point. You can't do half nearly the things that you want to do if you're not feeling good. And if you're going to put your health on the back burner, like many of us have, and not really prioritize ourselves, you're really not going to find yourself where you can just feel the best that you can. And that's what we all want. I mean, I don't know if anybody who's ever told me that they love to not feel good and that they just want to go into the hospital and they want to have all these doctor's appointments and they just want to stay, in that kind of world. No one has ever came to me and shared that that is their dream ever. Okay. So I don't know, but you want to pick up Linda's book. Okay. So Linda, share your book again, like
Oh,
for the
sure.
audience so people can see it.
Sure.
Okay. It's called The Pause to Relax, and it's on Amazon, right?
Amazon ebook,
Ebook,
paperback, and
paperback,
hardcover.
and
The ebook
hardcover.
is $7.99. The paperback is $17.99, and then the hardback I think is $26.99. This is color.
Yeah.
Ebook is color, and then the hard is black and white.
Yeah. So
But I
please,
want to remind people, Rochelle, is that you could gift an ebook. Well, you could buy many of these, but the cheaper one is if people read on a Kindle and an ebook, you could buy a gift of my book with a Kindle, $7.99, and then you put in their address, their email address, and then a note, and then it goes to them. And that's the greatest gift of health. You don't have to
yes,
go anywhere. You didn't have to do anything. You just sent them for their birthday, for whatever, a gift of health, or just because I love you and I care about you. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be a birthday or an
yeah,
event, but you just want to keep them from having an event, a medical moment.
exactly. We don't want anyone in our communities to ever
Right,
have to succumb to,
right.
I just didn't take care of myself, and that's why I'm here. All right.
Or I didn't know. I didn't know. That's the point of me writing this book. So many women, Rochelle, still don't know. Still don't know. Still
Yeah.
don't know.
And we're not here for you to not know. So here's the information. This was an hour and about 5 minutes of information that you can share. Like, go to the YouTube channel because I will be downloading it, but it is on my Facebook page, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. Share this with your community because you're blessing someone with information that they can have. And also go and purchase, Linda's book so that way you can have it at your fingertips and be able to use it. And it is a guide. So
It is
as
a
a
guide.
guide, so you can get all of what we were talking about box breathing. We were talking about the PEBs. We were talking about the pillars of heart. There's so many statistics and research that she has done because these are the things that are going to help us. Okay. So Linda, what else would you like to share before we get out of here? Because we already at the top of the hour, and you know
Right,
how we do. We can go on and on and on.
right.
But what are some other things you want to share before I give you
Um,
the last question?
I want to thank you for purchasing a book, number one. Number two, if you do, I would like to ask you to write a review, because when I wrote my first book, I had 5-star reviews. They were all 5-star reviews. It's beautiful. But when you go to upload this new book, they're all wiped out. So in the
No.
front of the book, I do have endorsements, and that's great. But for the new people that are reading this book, maybe for the first time, you never read the first one, I just leave a review. I don't care how many stars, but just say something about the book, how it blessed you, how it, increased your awareness. That would be great. And the other one, I just want to remind people to keep it simple, ladies. Yes, there are 9 pillars of heart disease prevention. Don't think you're going to do all 9 in 30 days. I like to remind women, keep it simple. Just embrace one of those pillars for 30 days.
Yeah.
Drinking water. Drinking more water and paying attention to the color of your urine and how much you're drinking, half your body weight, is a wonderful way to start. Maybe your skin will look better. Maybe you will get headaches. Maybe your sinuses will feel better. Just maybe. But
Yeah.
just focus on one. Don't try to do too much all at once because it takes time. Okay. I just want to just go easy on yourself. Even though there's so much information here, just embrace one pillar and then know that, wow, I did that one. Okay, let's move on. Right?
Yeah. I agree, because you can get overwhelmed
You can, Rochelle.
easily,
You can.
with all the things that we can do to help ourselves. But we want you to make sure that you have the tools that you're
Right.
going to need. So that way you can have, this thing that we call longevity, because I know
Right.
all of us want to live a longer and healthier life. So with that all being said, Linda, I think I asked you last show, but I'll ask you again. Legacy is one of those things that we always talk through. And so I know I'm trying to get to that 80th birthday. Okay. And I know when I do, I want to hear what people thought about the life that I was living. What were they going to share with everybody? So, what is it that you would like for your family or friends to say about you on your 80th birthday? If God gives you favor and gives you 80 years, what would you like for them to share?
Well, I just turned 70, so I want to live to 100. But when I get to 80, I just want people to say, Linda was so passionate about caring about people's health, almost to the point where my kids just lost their mind about, because I'm so passionate and I'm so intense about it, and my husband too, so intensely passionate. But I am, Rochelle, you know how I am.
I
So
know.
I want people to say, you know what? She really cared a lot. Sometimes I cared too much and I
Yeah,
really needed to come down a
bring
little
it
bit.
in.
But that's how passionate I am about this, Rochelle.
Yeah,
As you are, you
yeah,
want women to get this. You want women to come out of the military, celebrate they made it, and now let's go create a new life.
yes,
You made it,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely,
And you
absolutely.
deserve to create a new life. You served our country, right?
Absolutely. Yes. That is a whole
Absolutely.
premise of what we are doing. That's why I have people like you and so many who are, positively influencing and making such a big impact in your own way. You are so passionate about health, you're sharing it with other people, you're giving them information, you want to see people do well. And I think that when you have passion like we do for what we
Right,
do,
right,
it creates this ripple effect. So,
right.
I just absolutely love that you were here on the show with us today or tonight. Y'all, please, please, please share this with your community. And if you come back, put in hashtag replay that you went ahead and watched it. Give us your comments, your feedback, so we know, how this show was for you. And listen, y'all, we're going to be back here next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, I've got another Slay Amazing guest who's going to come on the show and just give us more information and sharing and inspirational as well. So we had Donnell who came up here on the show live with us tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And if anything else comes up that you're wanting to share, please put it into the comments so that way we can push that out as well. Okay, Linda, we are out of here. Thank you so much for being such a great guest as always.
Thanks for
And
having me.
yes, and good luck on your book and all the things that are going to come with that. And I know there's just going to be so much more for you. So Everybody keep on slaying until you can't slay no more. And we will be back next Sunday at 7 p.m. Or you can go find me on the Rise and Slay show on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just wanted to share that too with y'all. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye.